Now, we reached out to the audience and we asked them this question about the market. Earnings per share, also known as EPS, can be manipulated by shrinking the stock flow. And the answers we got back were 68% were true, 6% were false, and 26% were I don't know. Now, this wasn't a trick question, but there is some nuance based around the question because you want to kind of understand the difference between the stock flow and what we call outstanding shares. But first, let's go into what do we mean by earnings per share. So the definition of that would be a company's net profit divided by the number of common shares it has outstanding. And then that indicates how much money a company makes for each share of stock. It is a widely used metric for estimating corporate value. Normally, every 90 days, the company is going to report earnings per share. And what you're going to understand is that this number can be skewed or manipulated based on several things going on inside the company. But let's talk about one specific thing, right? So let's say, for example, we got a pie, and the pie is going to represent 100%. Okay? So we got 100% total outstanding shares. And what total outstanding shares means, all the shares that are inside the company that have not been what we would call retired. And we're going to get to that later. So 100% total outstanding shares equals 1,000 shares. 50% are going to be on the float. And what we mean is by on the float is that they're available to be traded. Then 50% are going to be restricted. And what we mean by that is that they're going to be held by the insiders of the company, the management, and they're not going to be available to be traded on the float as long as the management holds them. Okay, you want to understand that. Now, what happens is the company says we're going to do a stock buyback of 200 shares. Okay, so what they do is they go really into the float. Okay, and they go and they what we call retire 200 shares. Now, what we mean by retiring 200 shares is that those shares are no longer considered outstanding. They've been retired. So not only are they no longer in circulation, the insiders of the company, the managers, are no longer holding those shares. Those shares have been retired. They essentially no longer exist. They've been zapped, right? So what we do now is we have 800 shares represent total outstanding shares. So let me give an example. If we have revenue, right, which is really going to be profit. So let's go back to EPS, what we mean by EPS. If we have net profit quarter to quarter, let's say that net profit is flat, right? So it's flat. And what I mean by flat is that we don't get an increase or a decrease in net profit quarter to quarter, but we retire the 200 shares. What it does now is it makes the earnings per share look higher, even though revenue is flat, because we have less shares attached to the earnings. So it looks like our earnings per share has gone up, but in reality, what have we done? We've retired the shares via the stock buyback. And so that's what I want you to understand is that often when you hear earnings per share, people get excited over it. But the question is, have they retired shares from quarter to quarter? Have they retired shares year to year? And is that why the earnings per share is starting to go up? And so that's why when you're listening to earnings per share, you want to kind of take in context what you're listening to. You want to have a comprehensive understanding of what is actually going on as opposed to just looking at the number, because if they have retired shares, it can make earnings per share look larger or increase. But in reality, revenue could have been flat quarter to quarter. Revenue could have even decreased quarter to quarter. However, earnings per share can look like it's increasing. Hope you got some value from it. David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.